Shunryo, my mother's diaper. The verse, I'm my mother's daughter. I'm my mother's mother. Is one truer than the other? Calling things dual or non-dual will just add more waste to what you carry. The koan. 2 years into being my mother's primary caregiver, she began to need adult diapers. She adapted to them without comment. For me, the ritual of sitting on the edge of the tub first thing in the morning, facing Mom as she's seated on the toilet, sliding her pants and diaper first over her knees and then off each foot, has become a meditation. How heavy is my mother's diaper? So welcome to SLOZC and our Sunday morning venue here at the White Heron Sangha Meditation Center in Avila Village. And it is the start of another beautiful day. I guess it's supposed to be a duplicate of yesterday, which was gorgeous. And I got to tell you, driving in early this morning was spectacular. I'm out in Los Osos. Rinkai lives out there as well. And driving down LOVR with the sun rising, wispy clouds in the east and the waning moon going down in the west. It was the wolf moon on Thursday night, full moon. And we have Fukuwan is on TV. Is she there?
Yeah.
Or she dropped out?
No, she's there.
Okay, good. And she was scheduled to do the talk here today, and she's still recouping from her surgery, so that will be rescheduled. And I think she's on the mend. She's doing pretty well. I got to take her to a physical therapy appointment on Friday, I think it was. So I think she's doing good. And her talk will be it'll be the final talk of our 3 refuges, taking refuge in the 3 treasures that we've been doing or were doing during the Ongo practice period. So we had one on taking refuge in the Buddha, and then Kanjo did taking refuge in the Dharma, and she will do one on taking refuge in the Sangha. So we have a tradition here when we do Dharma talks and other Dharma events or programs where we acknowledge the our Native American heritage. And for over 10,000 years, the local northern Chumash tribe here, it's called the Yakitutu Yaktahini. They walked on this very land, right by this creek, and they also walked on where Rinkai and I often go hiking in Montana de Oro, but basically all over this area. 10,000 years. And I discovered when I was doing a little bit more research, Yakitutu is a phrase in their language which means the dance of life. Isn't that beautiful? So I would like to acknowledge and pay my deep respect to the Northern Chumash people and elders and ancestors, past, present, and future. I acknowledge and offer deep gratitude to this land of the Northern Chumash and this land and water that supports us all. So put your hands together, please, in Gasho, and we'll do a bow of respect and gratitude. And I also read that they're trying to buy back some of their land. In the 1700s, 12,000 acres was taken from them without agreement or compensation. And now they're trying to get 9,000 acres of that back by buying it. They need our help. So look it up. I don't know if it's www.chumash or something, but if you do Chumash, you can get into their website. So this koan that I read from, it's taken from the Book of Householder Koans, Waking Up in the Land of Attachments. And this was written by my root teacher, Roshi, Wendy, Egyoku, Nakao, and Roshi Eve. Her Dharma name, we rarely use her Dharma name with her, but it's Myonen Marko. And this particular koan is taken from one of the sections in that book called Loss, Illness, Old Age, and Death. And there are other sections in there that are interesting. One is on home, and one on raising children, one on work, and another, Many Gates of Practice. So these are stories that these two teachers gathered from their own students. And what's really interesting is in terms of Roshi Egyoku's students, I know almost all of them in the story. So these are, and I say new because a few of them have already passed away. And some of the koan titles are wonderful, not unlike this one, My Mother's Diaper. But there are others. The Shit Abides, Pocket of Love. One is just, Mom! Mom! Horrible Monster, Daniel's Teeth, The Infinite Black Abyss, and How Pathetic I Am. I've done a number of talks on some of these koans, and I'll have to tell you that I didn't make the cut. She'd asked all of the students to put in stories, and she specifically asked for mine because she knew that she knew about this event that happened back in 2015 to Carla and I, and that was there was a young man that lived in the house right behind us, and he committed suicide, blew his head off with a gun, and we had bits of his brain in our yard. And then shortly after that, there was a young man ran out on LOVR, got hit, and his body ended up landing on the street, but right in front of us, right in front of our house. So anyway, we're thinking, wow, there's some weird energy so by our house. But I think she struggled trying to make that into a koan. So our koan tradition originates from the 7th to 10th century, and this is in the Tang Dynasty in China. And they were called kumans in Chinese. And later in the Song Dynasty, they were put into written collections. And we use these same collections now. Those of you that are currently working on your koans, these all come from that era. So it's really quite wonderful. But they come from a monastic tradition, right? And these are stories of, teachers, exchanges with teachers and students, or some Zen masters to Zen master, mostly male. The women that are in these collections are rarely even named, but I gotta tell you that when they do arise, they make the best of the men. They dominate the men. Or get the best of the men. Is that right? Yeah, something like that. And things are different now in our time. We're householders. We're lay people. We're not monastics. And even priests like me, we're not monastics. We have jobs, families, and we gather, some of us just once, maybe twice a week. Hopefully we sit a little bit on our own at home, maybe do 1 or 2 sessions during the course of a year. There was a Swiss Catholic priest, his name's Hans Kuhn. He was a theologian and author. And since 1995, he's been the president of the Foundation for a Global Ethic. So he's done a lot of work in comparative religion and in writings, analyzing the main lines of approach taken by Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, and gives Christian responses to the values and challenges that each tradition presents. And he says regarding Buddhism that he feels the biggest challenge will be the monastic tradition coming to the West. And it's so interesting in that we're living in the midst of this challenge right now as Buddhism comes to the West. And we do have a few monasteries like Tassajara, Great Mountain Monastery, or Zen Mountain Monastery, Great Vow Monastery. But primarily, this is we're householders. So this collection is addressed to us. These are our stories. Another interesting thing is that I remember this. It's Arnold Toynbee, was a British historian. He said the coming of Buddhism to the West may well prove to be the most important event in the 20th century. So hopefully that's so, and that it's a good thing. The point that Roshi Eve and Roshi Egyoku are making with this collection is that we can make change in our everyday lives. Our everyday lives as householders. Every moment is a moment for awakening. And some of us think that the current events in this moment in time, with all the political unrest that we have going on, the division, and the existential threats to our environment, a collective awakening. May it be so. But the point of these householder koans is that every moment can be a moment of awakening. And as lay people, as householders, this is our field of practice. I can remember being in a face-to-face daishan with a young woman who was just really bemoaning the fact that she just did not have the time to practice because she's raising young children, and just saying, I can't, I want to spend more time in the Zendo. I want to do more of these events. And I told her, the children are your practice. So this is our field of practice. This messy, messy life. This glorious, messy life. Roshi Eve often talks about when Maizumi Roshi died, he just left a mess. When her husband died, Bernie Glassman, she said, he just left a mess. In my own life, my parents, mom died first, and then my dad died 4 years ago, and they left a mess. And what was so funny is I can remember sitting in a pool in Palm Springs and Dad saying, each one of us, in other words, Mom and I, we want to go first so we don't have to be left with the mess. And guess what happened? I got left with the mess. And my brother just died not long ago. And not as much of a mess for me as it was for his wife that has been struggling with in the aftermath of that. And one of the other points that they make in the book is that it's not about finding solutions. It's about waking up to life as it is. It's often about perhaps leaning into an aspect of myself or yourself that's uncomfortable, something that you may be struggling with, not wanting to face, not wanting to get used to. As most of you know, I work out at CMC. I'm due to get out there again. I haven't been out for months. But always tell the inmates there who come in, and their first response to sitting silently is this, it's so relaxing, really nice. Blood pressure goes down. I can handle some of my anger management issues a little bit better. Deep breath. And I tell them, I says, well, if you keep this practice up, all your shit's going to come up. And that's by design. I wanted to share, before we get back to the koan, just one of the accolades that comes from the front of the book. And this was Reverend Barbara Becker, who was dean at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. And she was a student of Roshi Bernie Glassman. So she wrote, I'm a householder who wants to be a forest dweller. I moaned to Roshi Bernie Glassman one day when the responsibilities of parenting, work, and caring for elders, the elders in my life, all felt too much to bear. Just wait for Eve and Wendy's book to come out, was the response from Bernie. At last, the Book of Householder Koans is here, and I can ease into the reminder that the challenges of my everyday life are not hurdles to overcome. Rather, they are the path. My hope is that we will take this book, and I'm thinking of adding another program to one of our Sundays each month where we actually explore these koans together. And they're doing a similar thing with the Hidden Lamp down at ZCLA. Upaya's doing this as well, different folks, where they just get together, we lay out the koan, and then just kind of see what arises. So I'm going to play with that today. I'm not going to do my usual 2-hour talk. So back to this koan. There is Shunryo, and that's the person that this is her story. And to give you a little bit more background to the koan, she said, for 12 years during my adolescence and early adulthood, my mother was institutionalized for mental illness. She was self-destructive with multiple attempts at suicide. She cut herself and tried to break her bones by bashing them against whatever hard surface she could find. She alternated between smoldering silence, deep-voiced threats, and outright rage. Thorazine, extensive antidepressants, electroshock, and years of psychoanalysis at Pennsylvania's finest institution didn't help. When Mom tried to come home, we were told to never let her out of our sight in case she tried to buy razors or pills or do something drastic. When she went back to the institute, we were called to a family meeting. Mom's psychiatrist coached my mother to reveal that we would not be allowed to go out with her alone anymore. Her mother said, I sometimes have urges to kill you. My mother suffered deeply and perpetrated a lot of suffering onto her children. My brother and I nearly died many times, each battling our own addictions. Being her primary caregiver now for 5 years, with my brother helping as he can from afar, I have come to be aware of my love for my mother for the first time in many years. So it's picking up a diaper with a pound of shit, or one that's soaked with urine, a moment of awakening. Dealing with aging parents, Some of us have already been there. And some of you may be in the midst of that right now. And some of you this may be in your future, if you're lucky. And I say, if you're lucky, because ultimately, I found caring for my parents to be a privilege and an honor. I used to tell my brother often, my brother who, just an unbelievable schedule, he was a heavy metal Christian rock musician and a pastor, but there was a stretch one time when he didn't see my folks for 2 years. And I was giving him grief often, and I said, you should be jealous. You're missing this time in mom and dad's life. And it really is a privilege and an honor. My mom would often say, thank God for the Zen Center of Los Angeles. And I wonder, would I have been such a good son if I wasn't coming to ZCLA? Would I have made that journey to La Crescenta over the 20 years? My son-in-law, Laurent, I was with him in San Francisco one time. My wife Carla and our daughter Allie and Laurent, her husband. And I was saying, when we finally do get the estate settled, I want you to handle the investments and all that sort of stuff. And he said, well, I'm going to give you my first piece of advice right now. He said, get long-term care insurance, because what you have done for your parents, we ain't going to do for you. So I listened to him. So in this caregiving process, you get close, you become intimate with old age, sickness, and eventually death. And this role reversal is just striking. Here is someone who has taken care of you when you were young, who changed your diapers, and now you're changing hers or his. I am my mother's daughter. I am my mother's mother. I am my father's son. I am my father's father. And this can really play havoc for some people. And you can imagine that. Think of Shunryo, who had that unbelievable upbringing with a mom that was struggling so much on her own. In my own story, I put my parents through hell. They were trying their darndest. I fell in love at 15 with Ophelia, who already had a 6-month-old son, Donna. They flipped out. First of all, she's Hispanic from Santa Ana, and we're from Glendale, which at the time was solid white, conservative. They just flipped out. Eventually, because this went on a long time, eventually they said they forbid this relationship. So what does a 15-year-old do when he's told to do something or told he can't do something? He rebels. So I ran away from home. So again, this went on from 15 until I was in my early 20s. And at one point I decided I wanted to come up to Cal Poly, be an ag major. Well, they jumped on that. They said, the distance, that'll help. Maybe squelch this, the affair. And it did. But then I came up here and fell in love with Rachel, Hispanic young woman who had not one, but 2 children. The folks kind of changed their approach to this, and they said, let's invite her in. Let's not try to stop this. What came up for me as I studied this koan was a connection to the other book that we're studying on Thursday nights, From the Zen Kitchen to Enlightenment, Refining Your Life by Dogen Zenji and Kosho Uchiyama Roshi. So hear me out on this. It was interesting that it came up to me. Uchiyama Roshi said the idea of concentrating wholly on one thing is the cornerstone of the teachings of Dogen Zenji. In Japanese, this is called shikan, and the ramifications of this teaching of the shikan may have in our lives are important. And most of you will know shikantaza, just sitting. So concentrating wholly on changing that diaper or other mundane ways, caring for the parent. In Dogen's Shobogenzo, the section, it's Yui Butsu, Yobutsu. Only Buddha recognizes Buddha. Dogen writes, from the time we first aspire to the way until we attain enlightenment, both practice and attainment must be carried on with the whole world and sentient beings. Uchiyama Roshi comments on this, and he says, again, the whole world and all sentient beings does not infer spatial magnitude or number. Likewise, the attitude of the tenzo, and of course this is instructions to the cook, the tenzo, in a monastery. The attitude of the tenzo toward his work is one in which he tries to build great temples from ordinary greens, which expounds the Buddha Dharma through the most trivial activity. Handle even a single leaf or a green in such a way that it manifests the body of the Buddha. This, in turn, allows the Buddha to become manifest through the leaf. Uchiyama goes on in his commentary. To me, this is the fundamental spirit of Zen practice, which has come down through the ages. In preparing even one cabbage leaf or burning one piece of wood, we must bring out the life that is contained therein. Self, as the Buddha Dharma, means that everything we encounter is part of our living body. Everything we encounter is a part of our living body. Neither the leaf of cabbage nor the piece of wood exist separately from us. Consequently, truly giving life to and bringing the best out of all aspects of our living body is giving expression to the life of the self, capital S. Is this different from changing my mother's diapers? Handling even a single urine-soaked diaper in such a way that it manifests the body of the Buddha? So I think another book could be written here, Instructions to the Caregiver. Roshi Eve, in her reflections on this koan, said the most mundane tasks given attention become sacred. Putting diapers on a parent can become a sacrament, even if your heart and mind are elsewhere. Even if they still dwell in old angers and resentments, your hands are already beginning the work, cleaning and dressing, ministering to your parents' old and tired bodies. One day you sit on the edge of the tub, letting go of old thoughts and recollections. Pay attention to the business of changing diapers, and realize that the work of healing has already begun. Roshi Eve cared for her husband, Bernie Glassman, after he had a severe stroke. And she talked about putting salve on Roshi's right arm, shoulder, hand, and leg that were affected by the stroke. And she wrote, slowly the yellow salve streamed between fingers and onto the pale, thin skin. Tell me, whose body was I attending to? His? Mine? The Buddha? Putting on a diaper can become a sacrament. And I found that to be so in taking care of my folks. That being said, I wanted to stop here and open it up and see what's coming up for you, what reflections you might have. I'll read the koan one more time. It's very short. 2 years into being my mother's primary caregiver, she began to need adult diapers. She adapted to them without concern or without comment. For me, the ritual of sitting on the edge of the tub first thing in the morning, facing Mom as she's seated on the toilet, sliding her pants and diaper first over her knees and then off each foot, has become meditation.
There's a number of things. There's a lot going on in this. I mean, first of all, in one aspect, I really appreciate you creating a context for Zen Buddhism in the United States, because I've thought about that. For Zen to stay alive, we kind of have to embody it in a way that's unique to our culture, and not try to like do it anyway. And that idea, the householder versus that's a reality for us in our culture, and to embrace it, I think is a really wise thing to do for us as Buddhists, Zen Buddhists, because that's where we are. And I think then what I heard you doing is, what does that mean? What does that look like? And that as householders and Buddhists, we have really infinite opportunities to practice. And I think that makes it relevant to just about anybody who's interested in Buddhism, because it's a here and now thing. It's not abstract. It's not. And in a way, it has a way it fits if people are willing to any person, any lifestyle. And it has benefits for any person if they can understand the power of that idea. And then the other thing that comes to mind, and you'll appreciate this, is attention, attention, attention. And it's part of the practice that we have with Zazen, that we learn that. And without attention is well to where we put our attention. And once we decide to put our attention in beyond who we are, that I think that is more the path toward awakening and putting attention entirely into ourselves.
And one moment, can you check with Koan, can she hear okay?
Yes, I can hear.
Sounds okay?
Yeah, it's a little difficult. It was a little difficult to hear Rinkai, but mostly I can hear.
Yeah, so speak up.
Okay. So mostly I think it's not so much, I mean, where you put your attention is that when you do put your attention somewhere, put it completely. Thank you.
So, lots to sit with. The main things that come to my mind is one is I think it became pretty clear to me if I were to die today, I would leave a mess. And I'm not like 83 like my father or something. And so that's like, wow, but that's like a call for why would that be? What to do about it. Just like you're saying, that's the reflection to sit with it and then just to see the drive to live out of the realization of whoa. And the other piece is for me with my parents. My father wears a diaper now, and my mom is doing the diaper cleaning in Florida. And my part is that I basically committed to helping them with some of the things that their finances, and I don't do as good job as I could. And that's me not like my diaper is not that diaper. My diaper is the bank statements, and that house that needs to be dealt with boxes inside in another country, and like the with an expired passport. And I mean, I could just go on and on and on, and that's that's the diaper. So the diaper can be many kinds of diapers, and feel. Have the stink, like of any other, like the one my mom's changing, or the one that I'm changing, for my own 2-year-old. So it's just like an enormous wake up call. So thank you for just putting the diaper on the table.
As some of you won't be surprised, especially you, Sensei, one of the things that this koan reminds me of is taking care of my great-grandmother who just passed just over a year ago at, gosh, what was it? I've forgotten now. Was it 103?
I think she's more than that.
I thought she was older than that.
I think she was. I've forgotten now.
She's
It all blurred together at a certain point. Was it 100, almost 105?
Yeah,
I think it was, yeah. So I remember just as sort of the milestone of celebrating her 100th birthday, and we all got together at the Copper Kettle Cafe at Madonna Inn, and that was a big deal because she was 100, and we all thought, well, we don't know how much longer we have with her. And then she lived to be almost 105. But because I was the one closest to her, I wound up with most of the duties, especially being on call when she would wind up in the emergency room, because she lived by herself in a second floor condo. And
Almost to the very end.
almost to the very end until like the last 6 months. And I don't know if I ever talked about this part of it, but I remember at the beginning when I was first called, Grandma's in the hospital, would you mind going to see her and talk to them? And my father and his older sister had already passed away, and that just left his younger sister, my aunt, who lived down in Carlsbad, so she was quite a distance away. And so she would get the call from the hospital and then would relay that to me. But I remember telling my mother at the beginning when I realized there's going to be a lot of more, stuff that's going to need to happen, because she was pretty self-sufficient up until about 100, which is pretty startling when you think about it. But I remember telling my mother, this was my great grandmother, who was actually my stepfather's mother, my stepfather who raised me. And I said, you know, she said, what do you think about all that? And this responsibility. And I said, well, the thing I'm struggling with is when I was a kid, I didn't feel like she liked me very much. So I kind of always felt like, you know, I don't have a lot of good feeling associated with her. But the more time I spent with her, the more all of that just was not there, both in the figurative sense and literally not there. I mean, here was this person, and she was very sweet actually, and not that hard to take care of. That was just a lot to do, and a lot of time that needed to be devoted to it. And so the other thing that comes up is, I haven't thought about this for a while since she passed, but one of the contrasts that was always apparent to me was the difference between taking care of my daughter when she was little and needed assistance, and taking care of this elderly person. And what's the difference? Why is it different? How is it different? And what are all the thoughts and emotions they get all tangled up around? I, you know, shouldn't have to do this, or this is an imposition on me. I never felt that way raising my daughter, and I suppose it's possible to feel that way about your children. I know some people must, but and so I, ultimately felt like not only was it a good opportunity for me to have a different sort of relationship with her at the end of her life, but also just another example of, you know, your practice is wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And yeah, if you wondered if you hadn't been going to DCLA all those years, would you have gone to La Crescenta for all those years and taken care of your parents? Would I have been able to, you know, play my part taking care of her, if not for, you know, years of practice before that was required of me? So I don't know what the difference is, but I'll just leave that as I guess as an open question.
Check with Fukuma if she has any comments.
Juan, do you have
I'll say something.
okay.
You know, I had a similar experience that you did, Kanjo, with taking care of my mother. You know, I was the primary caretaker, and she came, and because my son was still young, she came and died at my house. And you know, whatever issues I'd had, parental issues, or with her parentally, they disappeared by taking care of her. And what was really interesting to me is afterwards, my brother and sister, who only came at the time of her death for a short period, both of them had unresolved issues with her. And I really feel it was the intimacy. You know, maybe that's true of everything, is that any of our issues can evaporate with intimacy, with actually getting intimately involved with whatever it is. I don't know, maybe it's just a thought for me, but it certainly changed my relationship with her. And I had no regrets or feelings of unfinished business, you know, because of that closeness with her. And I just, you know, because of having this surgery, you know, I've had a couple of these surgeries before, and my son was young when that happened, but now he's 30 years old, and he came down to take care of me. And I had asked him if he could come for 5 days. He stayed for 12 days. And he, in the middle of the night, brought me ice for my knee, brought me pain medicine, you know, helped me up if I couldn't get up, brought me food, found the food that I could eat. You know, that's the other side of it. to be on the other side, which we're all going to be on at some point too. And I'm really independent person. You know, if I can do it myself, I'll do it myself. I have a hard time asking for help, and it was really good experience for me to accept help. It was a good experience to ask people like Sensei Shōgen to help me when I couldn't drive. Um, and to find that people, you know, there's something that happens. You know, I know when somebody asks me for help, my friends that have asked me for help, I really appreciate it. Something else happens, you know, it's a gift to me. And I'm trying to recognize that in the other side of taking help from people, that allowing people into your life is very important. And anyway, I do, you know, I just, it's the first time thought, but I really have hope that maybe getting intimately involved with anything that's causing you trouble will change it. And that's certainly the experience of our practice, I think. Thank you.
And indeed, and that seemed to be Shunryo's experience as well in taking care of her mother. Ray, any comments? We're almost done. We're getting late.
Yeah.
And they actually have a potluck, so we need to be
Oh, that's right.
vacated by noon.
I do want to say one thing,
Mm.
because I took care of my mother a lot as she was dying. And it was difficult, you know. I mean, it was difficult because, quite frankly, she was not happy. I mean, she was, how could I say? It was not easy for her to die, and she was, for lack of a better word, grumpy a lot, you know. And my job was not, it wasn't my job. I just not get involved in that. And I finally learned to accept that. Accept that I wasn't going to change her life. I mean, one of the classic things over and over was like, we'd go to the doctor, take her to the doctor. The doctor would say, this is, you know, if you're complaining, you want to get better, you know, we talk it over, this is what will help. Literally getting her to the car. We get to the front and I try to get her to get in the car the way the doctor told her, and it's like, I don't want to do it that way, you know. I mean, she was, and at first I would say that this is the doctor's orders, you know, and I do everything I can because it was, I thought I was doing, you know, I was trying to be helpful and do what the doctor said. And all it did is it created even more conflict.
Mm.
And one of the resolutions I just came to is, this is her life. And if she decides to make decisions that are not, I think, in my best interest, it's not me, you know. And I was accepting my mother for my mother. And I used to joke, it's like, why do we get irritated? There's a fight. That's the way she is. And that was really helpful to finally come to the realization of of being with somebody and accepting them for being a little bit ornery and not easy to work with. And it makes it kind of easier, the situation's easier, because then there's not that extra conflict of the doctor said, oh, this is not in your best interest. Well, who am I to say? And so I think the shift in my caretaking was acknowledging that I could help her and I wasn't going to change her. And I was just accepting her, even though there was, you know, a lot of friction.
Yeah.
And that was part of the situation.
Exactly.
Just accept it. And that even when it's your mother and you love the mother and you kind of think, you know, not just doing things that, it's like allowing them to be, like I said, honoring. And that's part of it. That was her choice, you know, in a certain way. And you accept that. And that, I don't know, that was really a good thing for me to come to a realization. And that I wasn't, as a caretaker, I wasn't there to save her. I wasn't there to make her life better from the point of my view. What my job was to take care of her the best I could with, I guess that's it, you know. And that, even, because I was just thinking about that I don't feel like I had any unresolved issues with my mother, even though pretty much up to the end there was a lot of friction. You know, that was the way it was. You know, and I think that's all I can say about it. You know, it's not always going to resolve itself. You know, by the time your parent dies, it's like you have gone through this whole thing of forgiving each other, and you find this thing. It's like it literally is what it is, and you accept it, and that there's something about that. And it's hard to explain, but then it thinks that's enough. So, at least for me.
Quick hospice story. My colleague Berkeley, who was also a hospice chaplain, he had a patient, and this guy was one ornery son of a bitch. And the family wanted to have this beautiful, exit journey for him. And he wasn't going to have anything to do with it. He was an SOB, and it's going to be an SOB right to the end. And so Berkeley was counseling them, saying, it's all about being okay with things not being okay.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the shift that she made. Well, we are out of time. I just wanted to end then with Kizan Maizumi. He said, realize your life as a koan. And so if your life is caring for aging parents, changing diapers, realize this as your koan. And further he said, close the gap between yourself and yourself. Yourself, small y, yourself, big Y. As you settle into yourself, your capacity to love and respond to suffering, yours and that of all beings, swells and expands. So we'll end with the 4 vows. We won't do the vows so we can get to our cleanup.
Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. Inexhaustible delusions, I vow to end them. Boundless dharmas, I vow to practice them. Unsurpassable Buddha way, I vow to embody it. Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. Inexhaustible delusions, I vow to end them. Boundless dharmas, I vow to practice them. Unsurpassable Buddha way, I vow to embody it. Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. Inexhaustible delusions, I vow to end them. Boundless dharmas, I vow to practice them. Unsurpassable Buddha way, I vow to embody it.
And I think we won't even do the exit,
Okay.
so we have enough time, because they've already got people wanting to set out.
Any moment now.
Thank you all very much.